Welcome to the Midlife Men podcast with me, Philip Briscoe. My guest today is Jacob, whose extraordinary life has taken him from adoption and privilege through violence, prison and fear to finally facing who he really is, what's truly important, and how he'll tell us how he rebuilt his life based on accepting who he really is and his identity. So welcome to you, Jacob.
Thank you for having me. It's a real honour. Very humbled. So thank you, Philip.
Well, thank you for agreeing to share your story, because there's a lot to it, and I think people listening will get a lot from it, from your experience. So let's perhaps start at the beginning then. So you were born in Paraguay. Do you want to start from there?
Yes. So I was born in Paraguay in what's called a favela, like a shanty town, a poor environment in South America. I was 4 months old when I was adopted. I was adopted by two incredible, a couple who couldn't have kids, and they were 41, I believe. And I was raised and brought up in Hampstead, a suburb, privileged suburb in North London. So I was, so I was brought up there and went to a elite private school, all boys school, just down the road from my house in Hampstead again. And yeah, things were very like rosy and beautiful and comfortable for the first, my early childhood years, I'd say.
So when did you first become aware that maybe you felt different to other boys at school?
I was told as soon as I was old enough to register it that I was adopted. And I felt different as soon as I think a person is capable of, feeling and any kind of, thoughts on identity. I felt different on multiple fronts. So I felt, so my birth name was Carlos. So and I was told that early. But my name was changed to Jacob as soon as I was adopted. So there was multiple things I found troubling and difficult. So I found that I didn't quite fit in with the boys around me. In a sense, I was quite sad. So I was always had an underlying sadness and anger. And as I approached, I think 7 years old, 6, I started feeling attraction or a different kind of fondness, I would say, to some of the boys around me at my age. So I was dealing with, contradiction and conflict in my own mind at a very young age.
And why do you think you had that? Why do you think? I mean, you were probably too young to understand at the time, but why do you think you had this kind of inherent sadness? Was it based on the fact that you just didn't quite feel you fitted in?
I think it's interesting because I think, there's, as for many adopted, people around the world that are listening to this, I always wrestle with, if I wasn't told, sorry, would I know the difference? Would that have affected how I felt, But I felt something was missing. I think maybe that's true and relevant with a lot of adopted kids. And I also think it tied into then being attracted to these boys and realizing, okay, I didn't know, you were not at that age. I didn't know, okay, I'm gay, but I knew something was different. And I think that contributed to my sadness because I felt immediately I couldn't express it. Just because of the environment. I think it was the early 90s, and how I grew up, I can't speak for anyone else really, but I just felt it was an impossible task to tell anyone, including my parents, because they're an older generation, and I couldn't tell the people around me. So I think that contributed to the sadness and the anger and the isolation.
So you reacted to this, well, you fought it quite literally. So how did that manifest? How did your behavior change?
So I think around 11, 12, I started. So the natural anger, I would start fighting at school. And because I was, as I said, quite an elite school, that was very rare actually. So the reaction that I got from taking out the anger on other people was very, it was like shock, from your parents, from your friends, from your teachers, from the community. And I thought to myself, okay, well, I can use this now to really elevate myself through fear and shock, to a place where I can mask who I am in terms of being gay, and use it as a cloak, to defend myself really, so people would never question who I am or what I am, um, because there'd be an element of, well, he must be an alpha macho kind of guy because he's being aggressive and physically violent, and I wanted to make myself unapproachable, um, well, obviously looking back on it, it's incredibly sad and also very cowardly, because it's not, wasn't just me that suffered in isolation. I projected my pain onto other people.
And this was your kind of coping mechanism then to kind of resort.
Yeah. So yeah, it was twofold. It was coping. Yeah, it was coping, but it was also masking and lying. So it was actively thinking, obviously genuinely, organically feeling angry, like I said, but also thoughtfully using it as a tool to hide.
And do you think, looking back now, as an adult, do you think you were, almost punishing yourself? Was there an element of that?
I think I was punishing myself, punishing my parents, actively ruining any future that I had, because very early on I always I started feeling suicidal thoughts, as in, I don't want to be here, I wish I couldn't be here. And I described it to friends now, obviously years later, and family and people close to me, as I always imagined when I was on my own, I imagined there was a switch, like an imaginary switch on the wall. And if I could have just pressed it, I wouldn't be here anymore. So I didn't have it in me to actively go and take my life. But if I had a choice, or that switch, as I said, then I wanted to turn that off and not be here. So I was, aware enough to know, okay, if I can get myself kicked out of school, if I could get myself physically hurt by others, um, or I can end up getting arrested. Even at a very young age, I was aware of this. I knew, okay, this would kind of end my life and take me out of my reality, which is what I wanted.
And so, how did your behaviour then escalate? As you got older.
So from when I was 14 years old, I would go to a school, so a state school relatively close to my school, and I approached those boys, and I started a fight with them. I got pretty badly beaten up. Then the next day I returned, same thing, started a fight with them, provoked them, got very badly beaten up. Um, and then returned the third day after school and basically gained their respect in some kind of warped way. Like, this kid keeps coming back. He must have some kind of steel or toughness about him, which obviously wasn't true. Because who were they to know the depths of my pain at that time? And I basically forced relationships with other kids at that time to try and get involved into crime and do their bidding, which I did 14, 15, 16, which included selling drugs at my private school for these other boys, um, fighting all the time. Then, as you got a little bit older, going into teenage years, fighting at parties, escalated into using weapons because I wasn't confident in fighting, because naturally I'm not, as I think I said, like a tough, combative person, and because it was forced, when people did fight back, I was scared of being hurt. So again, another cowardly decision. I would pick up anything next to me to use, which actually made me look to a lot of people at that age quite crazy, because I was doing quite extreme things at quite a young age.
Did you feel in control of this? Did you feel that this was out of control?
Never out of control, and also which made it incredibly difficult for me was I was only child in a in this quite big house in Hampstead, as I said. So I would be on my own in my room upstairs, and I'd be um watching, pop videos at the time and practicing dancing, like for instance, Britney Spears, I remember, and exploring my femininity um, in isolation and, fancying guys on TV and all these kind of things. And then I'd be leaving the house, changing how I dress, changing how I talk, changing how I walk, changing the tone of how I talked, my mannerisms, my language, to what I thought was the accepted behavior to be like a tough guy at that time. Changed the music I listened to, would erase what was on my iPod at the time to the different songs, everything you could possibly do, cover all tracks, and then go out and try and be the toughest guy at a party and hit someone, etc., etc. So I didn't feel in control. I felt scared all the time, and it eventually led to me getting expelled from school at 17 for fighting. I was arrested with a gun at 16. I was holding for someone, and I was sent to prison for the first time at 17 for 8 months for fighting. So that's where it ended up.
And did you think at that point, because this is quite extreme, Jacob, and
Extremely, yeah, of course.
almost two personalities. When you ended up in prison, did you what did you think? Did you think, well, this is helping me to portray this tough guy image, or did you think, well, this has actually gone a bit far now?
Yeah, so why I'm so grateful to be on here with you and kind of share my story is because, as you said, things when you're when you have like a deep shame and a deep confusion of how to be and who you are, and a sadness and an anger, no matter what, there's always going to be destruction. In best case scenario, it's destruction of yourself, which could still lead to, not being here anymore and hurting yourself. And worst case, it can end up in my situation where you're fighting on 10 different fronts and you feel incredibly empty because I felt no part of my life, no compartment of my life was real in any way. Felt I was lying to myself on the one side when I was at home and who I really am. I was lying to other people when I was at the house, lying to my family, etc. I was aware that it was incredibly extreme. I felt like a total fraud. Um, and when I ended up in prison, it was probably the first time. It was probably the easiest time of my life because all the fake goes away, all the bullshit goes away in a second, and suddenly you are in an environment with kids 100 times tougher than I was, who come from their own trauma and are kind of battle hardened in a sense and have experience in that life. And I didn't. I was running around in mainly overall, privileged different types of privileged backgrounds with privileged kids, and I was the alpha or the fake alpha in those environments, right? So now I'm in a completely different situation, and as a human being, I think you adapt and react immediately, and I was fine in there. In terms of physically, you have to prove yourself, which I did early on. I didn't win any fights, but I still fought, closed my eyes, and kind of plowed through with that. And I was released after 4 months on good behavior. So it flew by. You kind of grit your teeth, close your eyes, and bear it. And then when I was released, I was suddenly chest puffed out that, oh, I proved to everyone, that I am really the real deal and tough guy, which is really pathetic.
And you're still hiding your sexuality. I mean, this all sounds exhausting.
Yeah, incredibly. It's funny you said that. I was at a a get together of friends 5 years ago, and I was by the kitchen, and one of my friends said to me exactly what you just said. He said, "My God, Jacob, you must have been drained every single day." He goes, "How fucking exhausting! It's exhausting enough being, a man in this world, this day and age with everything." So, but when you're playing two sides and you're trying to be this ultra gangster to hide who you really are, he said, "I just don't know how you do it." So, no, you're 100% right. It was incredibly exhausting. And every single night of my life up until a year ago, so I'm 35 now, I would cry um, and scream in pain and despair to myself. So yes, it was incredibly draining and soul destroying and exhausting.
And so you decided to try and find your birth parents then,
hmm
and I think you took a trip to Pat.
Yes, so when I got out of juvenile prison when I was 17, I my parents basically were at their wits' end, had no I was already expelled from school. Um and they said they were incredibly supportive, by the way, through my whole life. And yeah, they were just exasperated, and they just said, "Look, we've always supported you. We've always been honest with you. If out of your choice, if you'd like to, we will help you financially to go to South America, to Paraguay, to try and find your biological family, if you think that will help you." And I agreed to it. Was very grateful, and I wanted to go on my own. So me and my father went to the embassy, Paraguayan embassy, and arranged for a solicitor, incredible human being called Marcelo, to meet me at the airport in Paraguay. I went for 6 weeks. I turned up. It was incredibly emotional, and it's emotional. Talk about it, looking back on it. I'm 18. I'm fucking up my life. I've made this trip to find my birth, parents and family. I've turned up at the Paraguay, which I've dreamt of every day to go back, thinking, it's going to fill the hole in me. And this solicitor has met me at the airport, picked me up in his car, driven me uh, through Paraguay. I'm like, in the movies when you're in real life, when you see a dog with its head out the window. Yeah, I was like that. So I was literally like that, just staring at all these people in Paraguay, thinking that could be my mum, that could be my dad, that could be my brother. And he's taken me back to his house, and we've had dinner with his family and his son and his daughter and his wife, who I'm just, a stranger from London. They know my story. And then from there, he had organized armed security to take us to the little village where I grew up, because obviously it was very crime ridden and dangerous. And also I didn't stay with him the full 6 weeks. I had a small hotel that I was in. So I'd go back and forth either with him to go find family, or staying on my own and kind of walking about Paraguay and experiencing it for myself. Um, so yeah, I basically spent those 6 months walking around Paraguay, which is a small country, trying to soak in what I thought I was missing, my identity, trying to had a little book trying to teach me basic Spanish, trying to eat the foods, listen to the music, meet the people. I went to a football match, all in the downtime of trying to find my family. Basically, he arranged for me to go back. As I said, I went to the town, Fernando de la Mora, and we walked around, and I found my grandma, which was incredible. And he brought a translator as well, and he helped translate. And she basically said to me that my mother, my birth mother, who gave me away for adoption, and my father had both died in a car crash a few months after they gave me up for adoption. Um, and she has no knowledge of any brothers and sisters I have. And I remember, Philip, at that moment, really, and yeah, I remember dying inside as she told me. So imagine I'm sitting in South America, the world's at my feet, in my head. I'm about to solve everything. I'm going to come home rejuvenated. I'm going to meet my mum, going to meet maybe brothers and sisters, my dad. We're going to take photos together. We're going to stay in contact. It's going to reshape my life. I'm going to fix myself. I'm going to come back and really start my life and rebuild my future. And I sat there with my grandma. She's told me that, mum and dad died. And I just remember going numb and started crying, incredibly deep tears and just feeling absolutely broken. And yeah, went back to my hotel, got drunk, wandered about the streets, kind of started trying to start fights in South America, which is obviously incredibly stupid and dangerous. Managed to avoid getting myself killed. I had, I think, 2 weeks left of the trip, sat in my hotel room, cried the whole time, got the plane back and to London. And within, I'd say, 6 weeks of coming back to London, I had changed my life forever in what we're going to get into.
So, that's another kind of massive turn in your life that you obviously weren't expecting. So you get back to London, and what happens then?
I get back to London, get more heavily involved in the trouble that I was in before I left, and I got into an altercation with another boy my age, I think the year below me actually. So I was 18 at the time, he was 17, and I ended up stabbing him. I was also attacked by a second person that he brought, but I stabbed him 3 times in the back, in the ear, and the shoulder. And I was arrested at the scene. And just to give a little bit of context, I arranged to meet this boy on the basically the pretext that I wanted to apologize to him about an incident that occurred before involving a girl, which was complete bullshit. I didn't arrange to meet him to apologize about anything. What I wanted to do was to meet him, to attack him in the most violent way I could in a public place, specifically a public place, so I could check out of life. Meaning, at that time, I never planned to kill him, but I remember thinking if he died, then I would be in prison for the rest of my life, and then I could check out and of life, which is incredibly disgusting, careless, reckless, and heartless to think at that time. But that's how I felt. So there's no point lying about that. That's the state of I was in as a person, as a human being. I also thought if I get killed, maybe he could stab me. That would be even better. And the way to guarantee that was to do it in a public place. So that's what happened. I was arrested on the scene. He was taken to hospital. I was taken to hospital. My skull was fractured, but ultimately I was fine. He had injuries that weren't severe, but they were still very obviously serious. They weren't life-threatening, thank goodness. And I was sentenced to life in prison with a minimum of 3 years, which means you serve 3 years and then you don't get a release date. So most prisoners in this country now, so the sentence I got was abolished by the government for being inhumane. But at the time I had it and it wasn't abolished. So what it means is you don't have a release date, and depending on your conduct in prison, then you apply to the government on a written submission after 3 years, and they decide if you get parole or not. So some people that got that sentence are still in prison 20 years later. So I got that sentence and I was released after 6 years. So I went in when I was 18 and I was released when I was 25 in 2016.
And so during that time, so obviously the state you're in, having had the life growing up you had, and then going to South America and finding out what you did, and then being in a situation where you thought the only way out was to commit very violent crime to punish yourself, perhaps not thinking about the other person. Then you did 6 years in prison. So what happened in that time? I mean, that's a long time to be with other criminals. I mean, what did you How did you get through those 6 years? And what changes did you undertake?
I was incredibly lucky that I have an amazing family and friendship group um, that never left my side. So look, there's two things when you're in prison. It's twofold. There's two things you have to deal with. One, the isolation. So you're behind your door. You're in the cell for 23, 22 hours a day for 6 years. I had no problem with that because I thrived. The only time I was even relatively happy was when I was on my own. Um, so if I could have, I would have been alone 24 hours a day. So fine with that. The other thing you have to contend with is the people. Now, I try to describe it to people that haven't been in jail. Imagine being in a big mansion, but obviously a shit mansion, and with 100 to 150 people that are prisoners that have, they're there for murder, rape, child abuse, paedophilia, fraud, tax evasion, GBH, attempted murder. So it's the whole spectrum of stuff. So I was incredibly lucky that I had parents that would write to me every other day. I was in a prison in Birmingham for the full duration. That's for the worst of the worst that they put me there. I Then my parents visited me. So my parents at this time are 60 years old, and they would drive up 3 hours drive there, 3 hours drive back. They would come and visit me every 2 weeks, and that saved my life in terms of, it keeps your soul ticking over. Okay, so it gives you some empathy, some love, a little bit of light. Every 2 weeks, I know that I'm going to come see them for 2 hours, and that keeps the light on just enough. I was also incredibly lucky that I bonded with five, six, seven really good human beings in there. Because it's not like a house full of savages and gangsters. Every human being's got a story, every human being's got a past. Um, and I really truly bonded, obviously as this particular version of myself, but however, I still did bond with five, six, seven incredibly special human beings, um, regardless of the environment we were in.
Were you still putting on, an act at this point? Were you still playing?
Yes, of
Yeah.
course. I was, but in prison there's a lot. So in prison there's a lot of downtime. So it's a lot of nothing. So you're in your cell 23 hours a day, as I said. You're allowed out for an hour of gym, and you get a phone call and a shower every other day. And then 2 years into my sentence, they gave us 3 hours out. So you'd spend time with the people you gravitate towards, and that time you're with people so often. You live um shoulder to shoulder with them. I wasn't putting on an act in that time, so that you just talk and you talk about your family and what you want to do when you get out, and just as human beings you interact as genuine souls. And in that sense, in those times, I wasn't putting on an act. I was being myself, and I connected with these people which was incredible salvation for me. Um, and I spent the rest of the time just trying to figure what I was going to do when I got out, figure out what I was going to do, and studying and taking courses. And inside I worked for the Samaritans, and I became what's called a listener. So when someone's suicidal, you go sit with them in their cell, and you talk to them, and you try and support them as much as possible through that. So that's what I basically did in that.
Did you still feel angry? Did you still feel really angry? And the only way, over that period of time, did you come to terms with the way that you were behaving up at that point, i.e., violence was a way of projecting, who you were trying to pretend to be?
I understood it early on. I think I understood it, to be honest with you. I think I understood it while it was happening, which brought more shame. I think when you're acting and you don't know why you're acting, in a way it's easier because you don't know what's going on, you don't know why. I was always emotionally mature enough to understand how I felt, to understand why I felt how I felt. I just wasn't strong enough. I didn't have the strong enough character or will or balls to own it and suffer in silence and not take it out on other people. So I processed why. I still process to this day, you know, all my actions, but I was always aware of it. And the sad thing, which we'll get onto, is that I continued my behavior once I was released, and it only spiraled more, really.
Well, let's get on to that then. So, 6 years is a very long time. You come out. It sounds like
Yes,
you
yeah.
have. It sounds like you have made changes or decisions, or your behaviours changed during that time. But then what happened?
Yeah, so I met, hundreds of people, thousands probably over the years in prison, and you spend a lot of time talking to each other saying, I'm going to do this when I get out. I'm going to do this. I'm going to travel the world. I'm going to, become prime minister. I'm going to do this. I'm going to set up a business. I'm going to help people. I'm going to, whatever the thing is. But when life hits you, when the door opens and you're hit with life, it's a whole different kettle of fish. It's a whole new reality, an actual reality. And the thing in prison, it's a gladiator school. So at the bottom line there, you have to be tough or you're a victim. So the only thing I became good at doing was being faker and doing nothing. You become an expert at doing nothing. You sleep the days away, right? Because you're trying to kill the time. So you're killing the time, you're doing nothing, you're sitting in your cell, you're watching 10 movies a day. That's a bit of exaggeration. You're watching 3, 4 movies a day, you're having your fight, you're trying to look tough when you can, and you're trying to sleep through it. Um, so I got out, and because I was in prison from 18 to 25, I had no skills on, okay, I'm 25 years old. Most of all my friends that I'm rejoining in society have been to university. They're at their first or second job. They're building a career. I didn't know how to, for instance, with a car, what car tax was, what car insurance was, what MOT is. I didn't know how to pay a phone bill. I didn't know how to upload a card to pay for Netflix. I didn't know about rent. I didn't know about anything. So I was released from prison. I moved in with a girl literally immediately. So at the end of my sentence, the prison for the last year, they would let you come back home for a weekend every other week to reacclimatize you into society, which is a very good thing, actually. Um, and I did that for a year. And in that year, my friends introduced me to this girl. We became close, like as friends, but um, more than that, which was obviously incredibly difficult for me being gay, but being closeted and hiding it, I went along with that, which was also terrible for her. And when I was released, I moved into a flat with her, and we lived in a 2-bedroom flat in Finchley, a lovely area. For the first year when I was released, she paid the rent, expecting me to eventually take the rent over, or at least split it with her or pay her back, or and find a job and kind of resettle into society. I did none of those things. I was basically, I had PTSD, so I was incredibly angry. Anger would blow up in different ways at night. She'd come home, she'd set off for work at 6 o'clock in the morning. Come home, I'd be sitting on the couch crying, had done nothing. We'd get into bed at 10 o'clock, for instance, and she'd want to either cuddle. I didn't want to do, obviously, as a gay person. She had no idea, obviously. So she felt unloved. That made me frustrated and feel like a coward again. I couldn't sleep because of, the trauma. I'd go for late night walks, trying to figure out in my mind, trying to unclutter it with all the stuff I had seen. Because inside, which we skipped over, I'd seen tens of people kill themselves. I'd seen officers murder my next door neighbor in front of me, suffocate him to death. Um, I've seen a hell of a lot in there, which when you're in there, it just happens and you deal with it. Can't cry about it because you're seen as weak. So it all kind of came out in the, when I was released, and I ended up getting into drugs, cocaine. Um, and any money I got, I would sit at home in that flat and sniff cocaine on my own and cry, and then try and hide the fact that I was doing drugs to this girl, this woman who would come home from work and expect me at the very least to be on the computer searching for work, and tell her I'd tried to look for work and I'd been to 10 interviews or whatever that day, which is completely fair. And I'd be sitting on the couch trying to hide that I wasn't on cocaine, crying, shouting, sometimes screaming, and pleading for her that I don't want to be here anymore.
Did you get any help? Did you try and reach out for help? Professional.
No. I've always, to this day, which is quite crazy, I've never had a single. Well, no, when I was 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, my parents would pay for me to get therapy. But to this day, I haven't, in the last 15 years, had any therapy, which now, when we get on to the end of my story, I think it's a kind of a credit to my strength. But at the time we're talking about, no, I could have really used it. And I do believe every human being on this planet would benefit from therapy. So I would definitely benefit from it 100%.
So what happened next? I mean, just listening to you tell your story, it's just, it's quite, yeah, causing anxiety just listening to you, because, we're back now in a situation which is a terrible situation. You don't seem to have progressed at all. What do you do next?
And I would say to you, the hardest times of my life were the few years after being released from prison. They were harder because you have the option, you have the luxury of anything. So for you in your life, Philip, right now, you've got your freedom. So you could stand up right now, cancel this interview, and go for a walk in the park. You could fuck off to France for a week and leave your family if you wanted to, right? So I think what a lot of men and human beings struggle with in life is incredibly beautiful, but it's fucking brutal as well. So sometimes when you have the option as a man, it's even harder, because in prison there is no option. There is literally no option unless you want to be bullied every single day and absolutely battered to a pulp and murdered, as in some cases. You kind of you f- summon you s- you summons an inner strength inside you, and you do what you need to do. Um, but when you're on the outside, the warts and all show. And because fundamentally I didn't have a strong, I've got an incredibly big heart, but I didn't have a strong character. And that makes you a coward and that makes you weak. And when I was out, as I said, I got into drugs. So after the year in that flat, I developed incredible anxiety because the guilt of what I'd done to people, I always felt, okay, something bad's coming. And I still feel that in a way to this day, something's bad's coming, something bad's coming. So at that time, I would do drugs to kind of fast forward it. So I'd do cocaine, as I said, and cocaine's a stimulant what makes you speed up. And I felt, like a VHS, the best way to describe it to any listener, like a videotape, a VHS, where you press fast forward. When it used to skip and kind of squeaky voice and be faster? So that's what it would do to me. So fast forward through the trauma, through the guilt, through the shame. And also remember, I'm sitting there, even in the quiet moments at that time, and I know every fucking thing I've ever done, even the commendable few things I did, was all fake. It was all tinged and colored with bollocks and fake and bullshit. And I'd see gay people on TV or walking down the street, and I would think, wow, I'm so fucking proud of them because they can be them. That's strength. I can't. I fucking leave here. I want to be like them. I want to be with men. I want to do good. I want to help people. I want to go back to the prison I was in and help these kids. But I walk out this fucking house and I put a tracksuit on. I talk fake and I try to intimidate people because I'm broken. And I continued to do that. After a year, the girl left. I couldn't afford to maintain the flat. So I moved into a studio flat that my parents helped me with financially, which was like tenth of the size of the place I was in, but still an incredible gift. Incredibly lucky that they helped me. And I was in that flat, and I didn't leave that flat so we're in 2017 now. Didn't leave that flat for 3 years. Literally didn't leave unless I was walking to the shop in a drugged up, drunk state. I put on 5 stone, became morbidly obese from like an athlete, like a genuine athlete and a boxer, morbidly obese, doing cocaine every other day when I could afford it. Um, Suffered incredible anxiety and just stuck in that room, just crying every day and suffering. And then my friends that I made in prison, they were all released around 2019. So then they reached out to me, or we reconnected, and I ended up spending time with them. And the anxiety really kicked in because I thought, fuck, I can't, there's zero chance that I could ever come out as gay or even try and fix my life because these boys think I'm this tough guy, from when I was in prison with them. So that kind of, I felt in a sense really buried alive then because I felt I had nowhere to turn. Little did I know years later that they'd say that they never actually thought I was a tough guy. They loved me because they knew I had a good heart and I was a good person. So
So things
very funny and interesting.
things spiral then even more over those 3 years.
Hmm. Yeah, and those were the worst years of my life by far.
And I think when we spoke before, Jacob, you mentioned about hearing from your family in Paraguay.
Yes. Okay. Yes. So, um, yeah, just for all your listeners, if they think life's bleak from the story, this is when it gets even worse. So this is when I would say this is the ultimate, this is the worst bit for me. Obviously, I'm also aware that people have got much, much tougher lives than I had. Um, but still, this is the only story I can tell, really. So for me, this is the worst it gets. So I'm on my knees, literally, figuratively, spiritually, in this studio flat in Finchley, 5 stone bigger than I should be, my normal weight. My life is either doing cocaine or being in bed for 2 days recovering from cocaine, feeling incredible anxiety because of the drugs and because of everything else, blocking nearly everyone on my phone. Phone calls would literally make me cry and hide in the corner. That's how paranoid I was. I had been seeing men, which I forgot to say. So I'd been seeing after the girlfriend I had left me after the year I was released, I had been seeing men in secret, sleeping with them only, physical only, sex only, because I had never come out of the closet. So I couldn't openly start a relationship. Plus, financially, I couldn't offer anything to anyone. And emotionally and spiritually, I could offer nothing to anyone. I was very fucked up at that point. So I was just having empty sex with men at that time, which also destroyed my soul because you have this vision of finally, if I'm going to, put my heart out there in any way or even my body to connect with another human being and men, which I've always wanted after all the years of hiding. And then you're going to people's flats and you're just, yeah, basically having sex, and then they're ordering you an Uber or telling you to fuck off as soon as it's finished, and you're kind of walking home or crying, walking home in the Uber. That's also spiritually very, uh, very hard. But again, all self-imposed. There's no like I feel sorry for myself about it. That's all on me. And then my dad phones me and says, Jacob, have you got 5 minutes? Are you at the flat? I said yes, because I never left. And he said, can I come over? I'd like to talk to you. So I immediately I think as you would, someone's ill, someone's dying, something's happened. He comes over, lucky he doesn't say that. He says to me, and my dad was a very emotionally closed off guy. So he sits down to me and he gets a bit emotional and he says, Jacob, your birth mum reached out to me. And I said, no, she didn't. He goes, yes, she did. I go, no, she fucking didn't. And he goes, why are you getting angry? I said, because she's fucking dead. What do you mean? What's wrong with you? I got very angry with him. And he says, no, I literally spoke to her on the phone and I verified it was her. She called me at my office. My dad's 65 at this time. He retires in like a year from this incident or this point. And he said, yeah, she's alive and she spoke to me, and you have a brother and you have a sister. She's not in contact with your father, but he's also alive. So imagine I'm sitting there and I'm looking at him and I'm processing all this information. I'm also processing the fact that maybe 30% of the reason that I just went to prison for the last 6 years was based off the absolute desolation I felt because of the news of them all dying, apparently. And now I'm hearing they're all alive. They're all great to some extent of what great even means. And he pulls out his pocket. He goes, "Here's an email from her." And he basically explained that on my grandma, the grandma who I met in Paraguay, on her deathbed, she told my mother, who was alive, that she had met me and I had come back after all those years to find my family. And the grandma made the decision that she wanted to protect my mother from any, hurt or emotional turmoil. And she had decided to tell me that there was nothing here to look for, and sorry, everyone's died. And sh yeah, she had never told my mum that I even came to look for her. And on her deathbed, she told my mum.
So
So since she told,
your
yeah,
head must have been all over the place then, because you're in a very delicate, vulnerable place anyway. And then you hear this news. I mean, you mustn't have really thought it was true. I mean, what did it, I mean, you've just described what it made you feel. But what did you do next?
obviously the proof was there that it was real. I I thanked my dad for telling me because he didn't have to. Obviously, it would be kind of, I think it was the right thing to tell me. And I said I'd like to get in touch with her. He left me all her details. I said if I need anything, that him and my mum are there for me, which they always had been. I He left, and I cried like a baby again. Um, then took her number and video called her, which, you know, imagine that. So I video called her and she picks up, looks identical to me. Start crying again. Difficult to not cry now, actually, telling you this. And she couldn't speak a word of English, so she's using Google Translate as we talk, and so am I. Um, and we managed to have enough of a conversation to establish that the reason she gave me up, she said, was that financially she couldn't afford to raise me. My father had left her after being physically abusive to her. And, the environment she was in at the time, it was impossible for her to give me the life she thought I deserved, which was kind of lovely to hear, because it fills some gaps in a way, gives you a better understanding. Um, and also made me think maybe I have a purpose to do something good. Maybe there's a meaning for me being here. And we established some kind of communication relationship, which is incredibly difficult because, as you've heard, the trauma that I've been through up to this point, and I always try and reiterate that I put myself through, by the way, and the damage that I'd done to myself and others, and the burden that I carried, and the anxiety, and the depression, and the sadness, and the anger, and the exhaustion as well that I carried. Then now you put the fact that I've got another mother on my phone, opens up a whole world of emotions and vulnerability. And I then decided, you know what, I'm going to fucking fix up. I'm going to stop doing drugs. I'm going to stop doing anything illegal. So this is in 2020. I'm going to now, and this is a really important part of the story, I think, for your listeners to hear in terms of purpose and identity. I felt at that time, okay, I'm going to suddenly become Superman and go zero to hero to make her proud, right? So I then started working, applied for jobs, got a job in a warehouse, right? But for me, that was massive progress because I didn't get off my ass for years. So now I'm working at a warehouse. I have cleaned myself up. I'm going to the gym every day. I start to lose the weight, start to look better, feel better. Tried to stop doing drugs. Wasn't perfect, but I went from doing cocaine every other day to doing it once every few weeks, which probably saved my life at that point. But then I'm at work and I'm getting messages, text messages, and phone calls from my biological mother, right? That I've just reconnected with. I'm at work saying, Mi niño, te amo, Carlito, which is my son, I love you, Carlos. So imagine how I'm feeling. I'm at work and suddenly I've got my biological mother saying, I love you, I missed you, I've missed you, sending me paragraphs of, all these, things. And that's incredibly, it didn't feel how I thought it would, how I pictured it, imagined it, wished for it, hoped for it, begged for it to feel. There was something that didn't feel right in terms of, I don't believe in life. Love is based off name tags and titles, right? It's based off what you earn in terms of love and trust and respect over time, and what someone does in terms of, do they listen to you? Do they care about you? Do they turn up for you? Do they support you? Do you do that for them? And even if they don't do that for you, do you feel that about them? It's an incredible, intricate, delicate, private thing, love, for every individual. And this woman who I'd wished and begged to see, as I said, my whole life, and thought would be the missing piece to everything, that I suddenly tried to be Superman for, um, is messaging me Carlos, which I haven't been called ever in my life, which obviously really like would just bring on emotions from me that I haven't felt, saying she loves me. Yeah, it was a shock to the system. It was very difficult to deal with and manage emotionally. Um, and we continued building relationship, and I would speak to my brother and sister, who were in Argentina at the time. And so it's 2020. I'm working, and I'm reconnecting with all my friends from school that were always incredibly supportive, and my mum and dad here, who were incredible. And after just the beginning of 2020, I get a message from my brother, which has been obviously on Google Translate, um, and from Argentina, and he said he's been wrestling for this for quite some time, but he feels that I deserve to know. And as I'm Philip, imagine as I'm reading this, I know what's going to happen. I don't know, but I think I know what I'm going to read as I'm scrolling.
You had some intuition.
Yeah, and as I'm scrolling, it says basically your mother has told me and your sister and the family members in Paraguay and Argentina that she has Googled my name, and obviously she still has the documents of my mum and dad who adopted me, and she knew through research or whatever that my family had money and for comfortable slash, yeah, I think between comfortable and rich. And she had been planning to basically ask me for money. So the whole reason of her reconnecting with me was for money. And he sent me 20 pages of conversations that I translated, which proved that she'd used the opportunity that my grandma has presented to basically try and get money off me.
So your world comes kind of crashing down again.
Yeah. I think my world was already crashed. It kind of went underground from there.
And do you look back and think, well, I mean, that's terrible what eventually happened, and finding out the real reason that your birth mother was connecting with you. But actually, do you look back and think that some good came from that because you did turn your life around?
Yeah. So there were two turning points in my life that saved my life, and please God will go on to save others. That was the first one. So in the immediate aftermath of reading that, my first thought was fuck her. Fuck her, because as I said, I didn't actually have that spiritual emotional connection with her because it wasn't earned, right? It wasn't earned because she hadn't been there for the last 30 years. Um, so as I said, I literally felt immediate anger. I blocked her immediately, didn't say anything. and got in an Uber. I think I had £20 in my account. Got in an Uber, went straight to my mum and dad's, knocked on the door, gave my mum a huge hug, asked to sit down with my mum and dad, and told them for the first. No, I had told them a few times when I was in prison on visits, I'm sorry um, about everything, but I basically sat down with them and said, look, I get it now, and I was looking for something my whole life that was just right there in front of me. I traveled across the world to find it. I went to prison to find it or destroy it. And the people that, at the end of the day, being adopted is an incredible blessing and privilege because you're wanted. There's people out there that want you. Sorry, I'm getting a bit emotional actually. And I said to them from the bottom of my heart, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry for the pain that I caused them, for the sadness I caused them. Because I can't imagine, w- seeing your only child that you've adopted, or even if you haven't adopted them, or even if they're not an only child, Philip, if you've got a kid, imagine them going to, you give them everything from the best of your ability and they go to prison for 6 years, that would be undescribable for you, I imagine, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And it sounds like they were there for you the whole way through.
Yeah, they were the whole way through. And just to add this a side note to that, when I was in prison, one of the prisoners came and sat on my bed and said to me, in 40 years of working in the prison system, he'd never seen a family more supportive of anyone in his life. So that's to put in context of how amazing they were. And I said to them, you two are my mum and dad. You have given me everything, and I fucked up every single fucking thing ever that you did. I fucked it, and I am going to spend the rest of my life trying to make you proud. And I'll never forget, my mum gave me a hug and she cried and she looked at me. She goes, "Well, you've got a fucking long way to go, Jacob." So, um, and I got up and I went home and the only thing I've ever wanted to do in my life was help people, and I think you can relate to that with the incredible work you do with the podcast. I've listened to so many of them, and yeah, the work you do is amazing, and I think we connect on that level that that's all I've ever wanted to do. I didn't know, in terms of career, I didn't know what the fuck I could do. And I was so lost in those years, but I always knew from a child I want to help people. So my dream was always I'd love to go back to the juvenile prison I was in when I was 16, 17, um, and help those kids in any way. And I went home after that and I went online and I thought, how can I help these kids? Now, this is around the time of COVID. So I basically went online, had a couple interviews, and I got into a mentoring program to help prisoners through incredible company called Trailblazers. And because it was COVID, you couldn't go into the prisons and mentor, so it would all be done over a laptop or an iPad. And I started training. The training was 3 years. So it'd be continuous training as you were working. It was all for no money. It was all voluntary. And I started mentoring prisoners. So all prisoners that were 6 months away from being released, I would have 6, 7 prisoners on my file and talk to them a couple times a week each, and try and motivate them, encourage them, mentor them into how to be released, what challenges they'll face, employment, etc., etc. And that was the beginning of a complete change in my life, and that was 6 years ago.
And so the sequence of events culminating, I guess, in realizing that your real parents were the ones that just supported you the whole time. That was a real trigger point then, I guess, in you changing your life and I guess doing what you do now.
Yeah, I think so. There's another bit that I'll just get onto, but I think as I can't as I can only talk as myself, and I just think as a man growing up in this day and age, I think with social media doesn't help in a sense as well. And I just think the environment and society we grow up in, that I think there's incredible pressure on all of us, but I think especially men, just from my perspective, I may be wrong, that's how I feel, of expectation of career, appearing strong, being successful, success being defined in ways that maybe aren't reality, less of being kind, less of who do you help, less of your heart, and more on where do you go on holiday, what watch do you wear, what car do you have, and how much what's your income. And yeah, I just feel life is about purpose, and as men and women, but from my perspective, from as a man, that life, you're judged in this day and age in society, in this environment, more about what watch you wear, what car do you have on the drive, what income you have, how many holidays do you go on a year, rather than who do you help and what's in your heart and what do you stand for and how kind are you. And we all have a purpose, we're all here for a reason. And I feel that it wasn't just my biological mum asking for money that snapped me out of it, to realize that my mum and dad here were an incredibly amazing source of support and love for me. I always knew that, but it kind of shoved it in my face like, look, this is the reality of it. These people love you. Maybe love yourself and stop trying to find happiness and self-worth and identity in places that the wrong places. And I think that counts for a lot of men, whether it's we try and put our identity in a gym or career or drugs or XYZ. Sometimes we are enough. You're enough, and you're more special than you could ever know. And it's just about maybe something kind of slapping you in the face to show you that. Um, there's lots of men that have got beautiful children at home, an incredible wife or husband, or they don't, but they're incredible and they don't see it. Or maybe they see it, but they think it's not enough. But it is enough, right? And for me, my identity was less, it is in being gay, and we'll get on to me coming out and finally, but it's more in being a good person. Um, and after reconciling with my mum and dad and then doing the mentoring work, I was did the mentoring work for years and years, moved to another company and I do that full time, reconnected with my childhood friends, cleaned up from drugs, sorted myself out physically and mentally, emotionally. I still have ups and downs, good days, bad days, like we all do. And everyone would always say to me, Philip, oh, Jacob, you have to fucking do a podcast. You've got an incredible story. You've got to get it out there. You've got to get it out there. And inside, I was always, yeah, yeah. I was always say to them externally, yeah, yeah, I'll get around to it. But internally, I was always had incredible fear of doing it because I hadn't come out yet. And I just thought, well, if I put my story out there, one, it's not fully true because there's a part of me that I'm not saying and I'm hiding, which is not authentic. And how can I expect anyone to listen to my story if 20% is missing? Because then it's all tinged with bullshit. Well, I don't want anyone to know who would buy it, and I wouldn't want anyone to buy that. And also, I was scared that people come out of the woodwork and say, "Well, I fucked him." I did something with him, and would embarrass me or add to my anxiety. So I put that off for a long time. But then last year, no, 2 years ago, sorry, I got a phone call from my mother saying, your dad's just had a really bad fall. I need you here immediately to help me because now at this time to present day, my mum is 77, my dad's 77. So I drove around there, and from that day, I supported my mum caring for my dad, who we found out had the really bad dementia. And which I said to you when we first spoke, that helped thaw my soul. So all these things that you do in life, one day after a time, helping and being there and being a human being, allowing yourself to feel and to help. As I said, it thaws you out, and it really does allow you to feel and care day after day. And spending time with my dad, feeding him, cooking for him, talking to him, driving them to the hospital back and forth, which was an absolute privilege and a blessing to be able to do that for them after everything they've done for me. Um, sorry, just it's quite yeah. And it made me realize one, who the fuck cares if I'm gay? You know, everyone's got their own stuff. I really think at this stage, I thought, if anything, people might fucking have a little bit of respect for me and be like, okay, maybe that explains a little bit, not all of it, but maybe explains a little bit of your shenanigans. And I'd got enough money in the bank, so to speak, in terms of, going back to prison, helping people, really putting the years and the time in to change my life and to get myself on track and help people. And I just thought, you know what? I'm here helping my dad every single day and my mum, and it gave me a different perspective on life. And life is so short, and you got to be who you are.
So that helped reconcile your identity. Then that helped reconcile your sexuality, and
Yeah, that was the last. That was the last step. The last steps. You're seeing my dad, disappear in front of my eyes, seeing my mum every single day, crying and broken about that because obviously that's her husband. It's incredibly hard to see someone, what that disease does to people. And yeah, I just thought, who the fuck am I to think that my sexuality is so overly important that I need to make myself suffer more? I need to think that I need to continue carrying the suffering around and holding it as a burden, where maybe it's a gift and maybe it will allow me to live freely and help more, because it was definitely holding me back.
so it teaches you. Well, it's taught you really what is really important in life. What are those really?
Yeah, and fancying a man or fancying a woman or fancying someone that's green or blue or orange or black or white isn't important. It's about love. And if you are yourself, if you try to do your best for yourself and people every single day, genuinely, then I think everything is forgivable in that sense. If you really genuinely try to be a good person, you are a good person, then life is about who you love and who you help. And that's kind of set me free. And I told my dad I was gay and said to him one night, none of what you did was explain how my actions. I explained to him how I felt, why I did what I did. Didn't could never justify anything. I didn't make mistakes. I made the wrong, bad choices. And I apologize again over and over, which I always did. And I just hope that put him at peace. Um, and then the next day I cooked him dinner. I sat down. He goes to me, Jacob, when you bring over your girlfriend then? And I just looked at him like, I just told you I was gay last night. It was one of the biggest nights of my life. And he goes, yeah, when's the girlfriend coming over? What's she like? Brunette or blonde? Yeah. And it's the dementia. But I think that's a great little tidbit, sorry, to kind of explain the unpredictability and the humor as well in life. You can go from having the deepest, most profound, emotional, powerful conversation with your father about your identity and you being gay and the adoption and how everything kind of molded together to bring a cocktail of all that destruction to our family, and this is why, and I'm sorry and I love you. And the next day he's asking me, do you like brunettes or blonde women? I think it's quite funny and touching, and as I said at the beginning, shows how beautiful and brutal life can be. And I don't know if he fully remembers the conversation, but I think somewhere in my heart and my soul, I believe he does, and he knows who I am, and I'm at peace with that, and I hope he is as well.
I think that's a really great place to draw our conversation to an end. I think, Jacob, that's your journey has been goodness me, it's been extreme. And I guess what I hope is, and I'm thinking what you hope is, people listening to this will learn from your experience, will heed what you've been saying, especially over the last kind of 10, 15 minutes about the importance of realizing what is truly important in life and to actually recognize your own identity.
I'd like to say one thing, if that's possible, after you say what you'd like to say.
Sure, I was just gonna thank you for coming on, being so open and so
Thank you.
and I think more men especially, should be more open with their feelings and not trying to pretend who they are. And I think you're a very good example of someone that's really paid a price for that. But, now what you're doing is trying to, I guess, help others through your experience.
Well, thank you for that. And as I said at the beginning, I'm incredibly grateful and humbled to be given the opportunity to speak freely and openly and truthfully, which I, as we've covered, didn't for years and years and years. And yeah, the final thing I'd like to say to all of your listeners is, I think what a lot of people misconstrue as strength, or what perceived strength is really not what I believe from experience strength is. I think being able to allow yourself to be vulnerable, allow yourself to care, has to start with yourself. If you care, love yourself as much as you can. Obviously, you won't love yourself every day. I don't, believe me. But if you can try, then it'll make you a better friend, it'll make you a better son, make you a better husband, make you a better co-worker, make you a better person in society. And in society, we need as many men, especially this day and age, to love themselves and be leaders in their own way, even if it's in their family or even as their friends, and coming out and being I'm not a proud gay man, not a proud adopted man. I'm just a proud human being of all of it, warts and all. And as I said, knowing who we are and kind of allowing us to live in our skin and be proud of it and love ourselves is the most important thing. Because if you don't love yourself, you can't love anyone else. And without love, as cringy as it seems like a script from Love Actually, but it's true. If without that, then we're all fucked. So if we sort that out, we'll all be much better in general, and we can do a lot of good.
Jacob, thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. God bless.
Thank you for listening to the Midlife Men podcast with me, Philip Briscoe. If you have a story to tell and you think your experience could help others, then please get in contact with me either via the website, mid-lifemen.com, or email me at midlifemen01@gmail.com. Please share the podcast with people you know or through your own networks. And if you enjoyed listening, then please rate or like the podcast, because it really helps its profile and helps to reach more people who might benefit from the stories shared by my guests.